Okay, so let's get started with our first mini section. This will take us to the end of our first project, and this is also your midterm. Okay, so the midterm is worth twice as much as a regular lab, but don't worry, this one isn't going to take you twice as long, okay, because you've already done most of the work. So let's navigate to our project folder and let's make sure we have all green lights. Now this guy is spinning because I have a PowerPoint presentation open, which I'll explain in a bit. And that's what we're going to use to assemble our map book. I've made a template for everyone to use, and I'll go through that in a minute. So let's double click on our project file. Okay, so we're going to start with the Llano Estacado base because our first map is going to be called the political boundaries, and it just is a way to give people an idea of where they're at in the world. So we actually don't need to open up our maps at all. All the work we're going to do is here, and then we'll export each map and put them together in this PowerPoint. So let's double click on our base. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Our workflow for these maps is going to be to look at each one individually, see if there's any mistakes or anything that looks out of place, add all of the data we need. If there is any extra, then label it at the end because labeling takes usually the most time, and then we can export it. So for this political boundaries map, I want to add a different base map, okay, a very simple one. And so make sure your map frame is unlocked, all right? And then right click in here and choose activate, and that's going to activate your map frame. So you're actually not working on the sheet of paper anymore, and you're really in map mode. So be careful about zooming in and out. That's not what we want to do, all right? What we want to do is come up here to map and go to base maps. And we are simply going to add this light gray base map because it's really custom made for what we're doing here. It's very minimal, and it just provides a little bit of context. In fact, here there's not a whole lot, okay, because this, as we've seen, this is kind of a relatively flat area, and that's why we've added our cities, okay, and everything else. So let's go back to our layout mode. Okay, but this gives us a nice color to differentiate it from our border. Okay, and so what we're going to do now is we don't need our hill shade, so we're going to right click on that and just choose remove. Okay, let's open up our boundaries, and everybody looks good here. Okay, my towns and cities are down there. Now the last thing we're going to do is label these, okay, and I think the counties will be last. Now let's look at our transportation. That's really going to help people find their way around, and we will be labeling these as well. Okay, it looks like our cities are labeled, so I'm going to come up here to layout, and I am going to choose this 1:1, and this is the size that if this map was printed out at full size, the 24 inches by 20 inches, this is the size the lettering would be, and I feel that's fine. Okay, So now let's head back up here and choose full extent so we can see our whole map. Okay. And in layout space, it's really a good idea to limit your zooming with the mouse wheel as much as possible. Okay, because that causes the map to constantly redraw and can slow down your work. Okay, so everything's looking good so far. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go to our ecosystems map, okay? And let's make sure our map frame is locked, okay? And we don't need these credits. This time we don't need the group or the TTU lockup. We have all that. We don't need the legend. Really, all we want are these two guys here, okay? Outer border and title, all right? So with everything else being locked, we're gonna make a selection window by holding down our left mouse button and drawing out here. And now we've got those two guys selected. So just do a Control C to copy, and now come over to our base and do a Control V. Nice. Okay. So let's lock that outer border down. And now double click on this big A. That's the icon for title. And we're simply going to change level 3 ecosystems over here to political on the Yanoa staccato. Okay, now for the fitting, sometimes this jumps all over the place, and let's see what it does when we change that. Okay, so if that's the case, just click on this again and then hover over it until you see the 4 arrows. Right click and go to align. Okay, and it makes you choose this align to page, and then you have to come back, do it again, align, not distribute, align center. Okay, so that guy's good. Let's unlock or lock him down. Okay, so far so good. Really all we need to do now is our labels, and then we can export this fella. Okay, so what we can do here is for the U.S. county boundaries. That's really going to help people a lot get their bearings here. So let's highlight this layer, and then up here we're going to come to labeling, okay, and click this second arrow, and it's going to open up all the pre-made labels for you. Okay, so I want to keep this relatively simple. And why don't we just choose this populated, let's just choose this populated places. Okay, so that's at an 11 point, all right? That's not too bad, all right? I'm not sure why that didn't trigger anything. So if that is the case, make sure, okay, hold on one sec. Okay, that was really silly of me. Okay, all you have to do is up here, after you do that, you need to highlight this label icon, okay, and boom, all your county labels appeared, and I like the look of those, all right? So now we've got our state labels. So let's open up transportation and primary roads. All we need to do is come up here and highlight label. Okay, so for these guys, we're going to come down here, and we're going to choose, what is this, the primary? So let's choose this shield 2. Okay, and then we're going to need to, obviously we don't want that. So let's right click on that fella and go to labeling properties. Okay, now this is a very deep editing pain. There's a lot that goes on here. So What we mainly want to do right now is simply work with the symbology. Okay, so let's click on this category up here. Okay, and this is the size and the shape. Really, that's not what we want to work on as much as I thought. So let's go to position. Okay, now there's different ways we can have these placed. Okay, so we're going to leave that, it looks like it regular, and I think this offset perpendicular is what we're going to want so that we don't have any of these guys. Yeah, see how, no, that's not exactly what we wanted. Let's do centered horizontal. There we go. Now they're all popped up. Okay, now obviously there's way too many of them, okay? And so here is where you can stack. This isn't really the one we want. This last one here is about removing the duplicate labels, okay? And what I like to do is remove within a fixed distance, and I change this to inches because I know that this map is 24 inches high, okay? So I'm saying it put in 150 inches, and it looks like that cut it down pretty good, okay? Let's see what happens if we choose to remove all. Okay, that looks like it's the same thing. Prefer label near map border. Okay, so now here I think there's little pieces of the highway that are getting labeled. Okay, so for the minimum feature size, once again, let's change this to inches. All right. And let's say that the minimum run on our sheet of paper to get labeled, let's just do an 8-inch run and see what that does. Okay, that knocks out a whole lot. So let's try a 5. Okay, I think that's plenty, really. And I know that was a lot of work, but if you're going to put something on your map, especially a man-made feature, you really need to label it. Okay, so now let's do the same thing here. Come up, type on, hit label, okay, and we're gonna come here to our text symbol. We're gonna choose shield 1, okay, and we are certainly going to, let's just choose this, remove all. Okay, and then the minimum for labeling, let's once again go to inches and do that. Let's do the 4, okay, because we got, okay, that's better. Okay, and now we just need to get all those facing up, okay, and so that was, where did we find that before? Let's come here. And here it is, shield. Huh. They make it easier that way. Okay, God, now they make us start over. So let's go to position. All right, and just once again choose remove all. And then here, we're gonna choose inches and boom, boom. There we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. All right, and wait, that removed too many. Let's go down to 3. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we've got our political boundaries. Now this map doesn't need a lot of color or excitement or anything. This is basically just getting people their bearings. So the last thing we're gonna do is come up to insert, and we are going to do a legend, okay? And let's try and come here, and if you look real close, you can see your smart guides. I want to make our legend the same size as our title here. Okay, so let's come up to legend, And it's odd that it didn't put everything in there. Maybe it doesn't have enough room. So let's move that out more. Okay, so this is odd. Usually the legend adds all of your active layers, okay? But I just dragged and dropped this one. The boundaries, of course, is the biggie. And then under transportation, you also want to add your primary roads because I had secondary in there. So I want to add these guys as well. Okay. And now I'm going to zoom in here. Let's see how this looks. Okay. We don't need it to be that big. Let's slim that down. That looks pretty good. Okay. Now, let's double click on the legend icon. Okay, and we don't need the name legend. Okay, and we are going to, let's format the display of the legend. So let's give it a very minor border, like a 0.25. Okay, and then we don't want, we're going to fill this in with white. So let's just do that first and see what it, show you guys what it's going to look like. So here under background, make that white, okay? But we don't want our legend items to be just smack crowded right in the middle there. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a gap there. So for the X gap, that's our horizontal gap. Let's do a 0.2, and for the vertical gap, we'll do a 0.2 as well. Okay, so I'm going to pull this out a little more. I guess that's the way it's going to stay. All right, that's fine. Let's just leave that alone. Okay, so there's our legend. I'm actually going to make that a 1. And remember, at this point, you guys are good enough to, you know, you got to put in all these elements, but if you see a way that you feel would work better for you, that's fine, okay? All right, I'm going to come up to layout. Hold on one sec. My screen will sometimes do that. All right, so let me come to layout, go to, all right, so all I want to do now is make sure, come on, fella. Okay, so that looks good. And that's saying that, see, if you see those 3 little dots, it's saying there's some words there that needs to be a little bigger. This legend has really caused me some heartache. Okay, I am not gonna mess around with that, all right? Because enter, people know what that means, and I don't know why this legend was giving me such a hard time. All right, now I want it lined up with that, the bottom. And now I'm just gonna hold down shift in my left and hold down shift and use my mouse button, and no, that doesn't bring it straight. Sorry guys, this video is not the best. Okay, there, that one's good. Now let's come up here to share, and we are going to export this layout. Now you could pick that flattened PDF, okay, and come here, make sure you're on your project, okay, 4403, and go down to exports and just call this political boundaries, okay. And now change that JPEG to LZW, and you're going to get a much higher quality image, and it really doesn't take a whole lot of extra time, okay? Change the vector resolution to 300, okay? And let's see where we at here and uncheck this. We're not going to need that. Okay. And then just choose export. Okay. And then I will see you in the next mini section.